A while back I showed you how to make this rudder bar and how to install it. Now we're going to show you how it works. This is the end right here that would go into the servo. And this is the end over here that will actually control the rudder. It moves this way, back and forth. It's a pretty simple mechanism. They rarely break, in fact. They do quite well. Now, the way we're going to take this and we're going to calibrate it is we're going to take the end that goes into the servo, we're going to take it as far as the throw will go. Then we're going to go the opposite direction. In both points we're going to make a little dot with an ink pen. Then we're going to go right between those two, and we're going to, I push it into the wood a little bit to make a mark. But what you can do is, once you do that, just go ahead and make a mark with a pen. And that we'll call midships. That'll be the midships for the rudder. Now, this isn't the only way to do this, folks. It's the way I do it. Notice here that I've shimmed up the rudder itself. That's to keep it from wiggling. Now, take a little dab of cyanoacrylate glue, also known as super glue or crazy glue or whatever stick your fingers glue, and take the end of that rod right there and stick it right to midships. And what this does is, after you allow it to dry, it lets you go and put a mock rudder at midships. That also helps with placement. So you can see here, there's the engine propeller, and we got plenty of distance, and there's our mock rudder. It helps in placement of the servo. I got the idea for doing this from the Valley Camp. I was on board back in 1979 when I was building my first model boats. And it wasn't until I went back and looked at her rudder mechanism that I realized that what they're doing is they're just taking some gears and they're making the rudder go back and forth by pushing and pulling on them. It was simple, and I figured out immediately, right on the spot, how to do it. Here we got a close-up, and you'll notice that I've got the block right here to keep that from going opposite. In other words, keep it from going too far around, throwing too far around, and coming all the way over. You've got to have control of how much throw there is. Otherwise, the servo will pull it right around, and it'll break off. I also put a little dab of glue on top of that rudder post to make sure it doesn't slip out of there. Now, as I've always said, this is the way I do it. Okay, that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. You might figure out another way, but this is the way that I do it. It's pretty simple. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the hull back together where I took that decking out of place. That's a simple glue in place, and it won't show up because the deck house will go over it. Next, we're going to build a servo mount and put it in there, and I'll show you what it looks like. Here's the servo mount, and this is how it works. This is a Futaba mini servo, and I have a mini and I also have micro, but I like the minis. I know that the equipment that's out there now is far beyond this. This is old equipment that I like to use, but it works. Here you can see the actual rudder movement. Notice you don't need a whole lot of rudder movement. Okay, I found that if you have giant sweeping rudders, what happens is when you get in a heavy sea and wind, what you'll actually do is you'll actually block the thrust and you'll actually lose forward way when you're trying to pull out of the sea trough. So you need just enough rudder so that you have power and you have way and you're not blocking any of the thrust. And now we're ready to go sailing. We'll have to put the cabins on, of course.